Have you ever had that moment where you are just asleep and just awake, just in that little kind of a state? It's kind of fleeting. You might feel it just as you drop off to sleep or just as you wake up. In hypnotherapy, we use this state. It takes you into this deeper openness, but you're still awake, not quite asleep, but almost dreaming. I'm Carl from Hero's Journey Hypnotherapy, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I use this state and what I do in this state. So basically we look at a brainwave pattern, and I'll show you on the image here. And as your brainwave slows during hypnotherapy, or in that hypnagogic state, or in that slightly dream state, you can start to explore lots of different thoughts. And last night, as I was just drifting off to sleep, I was kind of tired but not quite ready for sleep. I managed to really just bring my internal focus in, and the next thing I know is that, and you can say, is this real or imagined? I don't really care. It doesn't really matter too much, but it's more the feelings you get from this. So last night I ended up traveling to this satellite that was off Earth, and I arrived and it was very black and white. It was very kind of just monochrome, and there was, best to describe it, there was like scaffolding all the way around the satellite. It was circular, but as I drew closer, obviously I could only see the sphere side that faced me. And what it reminded me of straight away was sort of like, how a sunflower, when it loses its flowers, before it's lost its seeds, you have all these beautiful little squares where the seed, multiple seeds are packed in. It's very much like a Fibonacci sequence. However, and as I got closer, I could hear this loud noise, and it said, distortion, distortion. And as it sent out this, there was all these little pods, which turned out to be kind of like speakers, sent out distorted signals out into the atmosphere. And I could see these like vibrational signatures flying towards the earth, and it was kind of interesting. So I thought, this is really cool. So I got closer and closer, and it was very black and white, and ended up kind of inside this satellite. And there was this being in there, and the best I can shape him was kind of like a peanut shell. He's kind of like, not really, a shape, but some kind of form. And he had no extremities like hands or legs or anything like that, and not even a mouth or eyes, but he was sending out this signal, distortion, seemed like every 2 seconds. It might have been longer, less than remember. And I said to him, what are you doing? And he says, I send out distortion into the atmosphere. And I said, but why? Distortion creates chaos. And he had this sheet of tin, and it was very flat and smooth. And he said, rub your hand on that. And he goes, that's without distortion. It's very smooth, it's very flat. And he said, the distortion is what creates change. And he said, you would not have a world if you didn't have distortion. And all the way through this conversation I'm having with him is punctuated with him yelling out, distortion! And all these speakers sending out distortion out from it. And then I zoomed back out a bit and looked at the world, and then I saw things like deserts and oceans and mountains, and they're kind of in this subtle distortion field. So there was ranges of distortion from chaotic to just very minor. And so you could say like a mountain range or a desert is in this kind of like minor distortion range until it isn't, until suddenly a large distortion like a snowstorm comes through, or eruption, or maybe a sandstorm, or maybe an earthquake or something like that. So there's a major distortion. The distortion in and of itself is just an outworking of nature or energy. It's neither good nor bad, but it's how it impacts the environment is obviously what judgment it gets. So, a cyclone ripping through your country, pulling up your houses, things like that is a massive distortion. And once the distortions move through, then it's next thing what happens. So it's very interesting in that. So it was very much like, think about how we interact with this distortive field. And I was kind of said to this being, it's like, don't you doing too much? And he goes, no, it's what I do. He was not malevolent or malicious. He was just very much just doing his own thing, creating a distortion field, which was creating things. As I went to sleep with that thought in my mind and this very black and white world, and then when I woke this morning, I was still kind of very much thinking about this world that I'd seen, this distortion world. And then I started thinking, well, nature loves balance. So what balance is there to the distortion field? And on the opposite side of this field was a field, and it looked, the best I could describe it as like foxglove flowers. And they were like little trumpets, and they were sending out harmonious signals into the universe. And they were there all the time, these harmonious signals, doof, 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 like that. But the default was distortion. You had to seek to find the harmonious frequency, which obviously offsets the distortion. So we could say the default is fear. The harmonic opposite of fear is love. So you can default into fear, or you can choose to have this harmonic frequency of love in your life. Default is racism or separatism. The opposite to that is acceptance and diversity, and acceptance of diversity. The default of distortion is anger when something goes wrong. The harmonic frequency to anger going wrong is obviously, how do I, solution solving. How do I fix this problem even though it's upsetting me? So this other world was with the little like flower trumpets, was much more harmonious and much more in tune. But also too, you kind of had to seek the frequency. There's times when I've fallen into that frequency very naturally. So sometimes it's like the most perfect cup of coffee you've ever had. You just have it and you think, I wish this coffee could last forever. A deep conversation with a very good friend, when you're in that flow state. Those moments of time when you're driving and all the lights are green, everything is just traveling through for you. Those are the moments of this deep harmony, and we kind of fall into them occasionally, and they're actually giving us a signal that this is available to us if we so choose it. So, and seek it. So what I do with, how does all this relate back to hypnotherapy, you ask? Well, what we do is we look to find those moments of time, those little frequencies that you had, and we can't go back and recreate them. So, that time when you went for a walk along the beach and everything felt magical, and you go, oh, the last time I was here, I felt like this. You go back out and maybe it's stormy, or maybe it's hot, or maybe there's more people there, and that feeling disappears. You go, last time I was here, it felt really good. Why is it not feeling good now? It's because actually the harmony, you can't bank it. You can't put it away for a rainy day. It is always there, but it's there in the freshest, most sense. So being present. And what we look at with hypnotherapy is how do we become more present in our lives? So those things that were tripping us up, those distortions that were upsetting us, how do we then take them into a far more harmonious environment? How do we transform the distortion and be thankful for the distortion, because without it, we'd not necessarily have this opportunity. And then actually embrace the harmonic and go, how can I make this harmony become more and more up to date with my frequency? How can I live in this? So it's just interesting. I thought it was the space between worlds, this satellite world that existed as a distortion world. And it was not evil, it was not malevolent or anything like that. It was more about actually just going, how can I do this, and how can I, it just operates autonomously, almost in a way, sending out distortion. Without it, we wouldn't necessarily even have the world around us. Without a distortion, a star collapses, the nebulae collapses, it creates a distortive field, an energetic field it sends out. So distortion is always there. Harmony is when the world forms and starts to come together. So that's just my thoughts for the day. I hope your day is going well. If you'd like to talk more about how to access this deeper flow state in your life, I'm always here to discuss this with you. Thank you.